Hello, you wonderful people, and welcome to another episode of Crime Centric. This being a show where I talk about crime dramas that I watch. For today's episode, I'm going to talk about Season 7, Episode 6 of Bosch. A lot of really interesting things went down in this episode, so let's break it down. First and foremost, I just found out this season was only 8 episodes. I just happened to look through the episode list, and I was like, oh, there's only 8 episodes. I just assumed it was 10 like every other season. It's so interesting because it kind of, like Banshee did a similar thing where it's like, oh, the final season's like 8 episodes, whereas like the previous 3 were 10. I mean, every show has shorter like final season, but I wouldn't expect this show to have. But that was just kind of interesting. So I'm closer to the end of this season than I was expecting. That kind of shocked me. I was like, wow, okay. So there's actually only 2 episodes left after this. But you know, before we even get that far ahead, let's just focus on what went down in this episode. Holy shit, dude! Come on, this is like a really depressing ass episode. I mean, the fact is that the hitman rolled up and he talked to Fox. That's why I was so confused. I was like, oh God, you guys are like playing coy with each other. But the fact is the conversation went on. He's like, oh, I'm a mechanic and everything. I'm like, wait, does Fox not know that that's the hitman? Like he just rolled back into town and stuff like that. I wasn't expecting the huge turnaround like that. I guess like it's a private plane, so maybe he was able to go, can you turn it around? I thought like, oh, it'd take him time to get back, but it's like, no, I guess he was still mid-flight, or maybe it was just a quick turnaround because Maddie was going to like testify the night before. I mean, it's still like once again, it was a day and enough time for things to kind of turn around, but that was still kind of shocking in that department. But the way Fox was talking to him was like, do you not know? I was like, and then I started going, is he here to pop Fox? And then the moment Fox goes home later, I'm like, oh snap, you're getting popped. I mean, I guess you are a liability because you know too much. And it's like, whoa, I gave all the information about Maddie and stuff like that. What else is there to deal with? Pop, nothing. So I was like, wow. So he got taken out. Okay, then home dude rolls up on Donna. I was like, no, because you were hopeful. I was hopeful like maybe she'll crash the car and she's able to get away, secretly call Bosch or something. I was like, nah, he's watching her like crazy. But I was like, that only ends one way. But you're like, nah, come on, please tell me there's a way around this. At the same time, Harry and Jimmy are dropping Maddie off to the court. Obviously, I forgot to talk about the fact that she got one of Harry's guns last episode, and she's like, "Are you mad at me?" He's like, "No. Like when this is all said and done, we can see if we could get you a license to carry if that's what you really want." But first, she just wanted to feel safe. Like after everything, like once again, Chandler getting hit the way she did made her think about her mom and just made her feel so unsafe. Especially now, it's like there's a target on her back. She's never had to really feel this, scared before. So. But I love that it's like, right, can you drive? Because it's like, good. Because Jimmy's like, yeah, it's like, I know. It's like everyone's shitting on Jimmy's driving. It was like Bennett did it a couple episodes ago, and now Maddie and Harry too. And we got Edgar nearby, following them to make sure everything's okay. But once again, he feels like he has to make it up because he's the reason all this went down. But as they roll up into the garage, like for Bosch, he recognizes Donna's car and he's like, she has her own parking lot space. Why would she park here? I was like, oh, please don't. And he rolls up to the door and just blood. I was like, no, that's so unfair. Like none of the relationships he has in this show work out. I mean, hell, your ex-wife gets killed. There's a complicated thing with you and Julia. And now on top of this, there was also that like, oh God, it was Sophia Bush's character. No, it's not. It's not Sophia Bush. I'm blinking on the actress's name. Oh, it's bothering me. She popped up in the show. I want to say like her first name's Katya, I think. I'm blinking on the actress's name and it's bothering the crap out of me. Like the most recent thing I've seen her in, she played Mac in Legacies. Like I said, I'm blinking on her name, but like she was someone that her and Bosch had a history and that complicated one of the cases over the course of the season. I don't remember what season that was. It had to be like maybe 4 or 5, maybe. I don't remember. But like, yeah, like nothing ever works out. And now Donna, dude, it's just, that sucks. Before they had a real opportunity to really get serious, because even she checked in, was it last episode? Checking in on like, it's like, if there's anything you need, just hit me up, It's like, oh, she was so solid, dude. And it was kind of hush-hush. So like, but I think Maddie like either figured out because of Bosch's reaction later or because she already knew and just didn't tell her dad anything. But, damn, dude, it turns into a gunfight. Luckily, Edgar was there to give them the opening they need for Jimmy to put him down. I'm like, yes, at least, I mean, it's I guess, karma in a certain extent, but it's like, now the question then becomes like, yeah, why did they pick Judge Sobel, which I'm immediately like, they had to have known Bosch and her were the, because it's like, you could have picked any judge, why her? And then later on, it started clicking in my head because they're like, right, who would know that we were going to take the judge's entrance and stuff like that, know to get the Judge Sobel and everything. And it's like, there's very few people who would know. And then it turns out it's the DA Boyle. I'm like, I should have known. And then it clicked in my head. She did know that Donna and Bosch were a thing. She literally brought it up. Was it last episode being like, oh, you guys are a thing? And he's like, no, we're just friends. Why would you say that? It's like, oh, you know, things leak here. And I'm like, okay. So it's... And the fact is that she's like, oh yeah, we're so devastated. It's like, you didn't look too damn devastated. But then Bosch is like, butter wouldn't melt in your mouth. She's like, what does that even mean? It's like, we know. Like, we could check the phone records for Fox, but we know sooner you straight up talk to us. It's like, basically, she slipped him some information 2 years ago, and basically she got paid 20 grand, and she's just been in his pocket ever since. And it's like, because at first, it's like, she's the one that, she set this whole thing up about, dude, it's like, that's the messed up thing. Not only did you get Judge Sobel killed, you almost got Maddie killed, you piece of crap. It's like, oh my God. It's like, what kind of person does that? What kind of person are you? And it's then, because she was like, what choice did I have? Basically, I'd either, you know, stay in his pocket, or, you know, I lose everything. And then, Edgar's like, it seems like a pretty easy choice in my opinion. Don't seem like it's a choice at all. You should have done the right thing, but that led to all of this. So much death, you know? And then, because they end up finding out later on, what ended up sparking a lot of that was the fact is they found Fox dead. He was like loose end. Once again, karma got him back for being a slime ball. It came back to be his undoing, but the moment Bosch leaves the room, Edgar's like, what's up? It's like, because she said, like, because Bosch was asking, like, why did you pick Donna specifically? It's like, it could have been any judge. He picked her because he didn't like her. But then Bosch was like, no, he picked her because it was meant to get back at me. Like, so, because once again, Boyle made it clear last episode she knew, so probably Fox already knew because we're already circulated around that place. It could have easily been Boyle gave that information. Or it could have just been like Fox knew just because of his contacts and stuff. But whatever the case may be, that's the sucky thing. The piece of crap is dead, so he kind of got his just desserts, but it's still unfair because it's like, he's dead, the hitman's dead, and Donna's dead. It's like, that sucks. That piece of crap will never pay for what he did. You can make the argument he did, but it's also like, he got off easy. You know, it's just like, oh, it's like he kind of deserves his comeuppance. Because also we find out later on because of everything, he played in between. He's the one that gave the money to the hitman. He was the in between for the Vincent hit as well as the hit on Chandler. So it's like, you know, once again, she caught two. Luckily, you know, she got lucky. That bastard didn't, you know. The devil came, you know, through to collect his debt. But it's still just like, and that's the sad thing about this show, that sometimes it's just like you get the most unsatisfactory, you know, there's like, you know, and I think this is just going to push Bosch even more to be like, you know, is there any real justice going down this route? You know, it's like, should I stay in any, like, you know, stuff like that. So it's just heartbreaking, you know. It's just like, you know, and even later on, you know, Maddie's like, I'm sorry about Donna. It's like, yeah, like she figured out because of his expression at the crime scene, or she just already knew the entire time. But obviously Maddie's still struggling with it too. It's like, if I wasn't a cop's daughter, and if I didn't have 3 like police officers with me, I'd be dead. But Vega's like, you're lucky you are, you know. But it's still that thing of like, it just puts things in perspective. Like, I could have easily been killed, like, because I think for her it never crossed from, you know, you don't think about stuff like that until you're in the crosshairs and stuff like that. Like, obviously, like, there's been a lot close to home, obviously with her mom, with Chandler, but like for you yourself to be directly in the crosshairs, that's a whole other beast within itself. So obviously they're currently looking at Willie because they were ultimately able to, they went to a judge who, it's like, yeah, Bosch has his reputation, but Donna thought highly of you, and it's like, that gave them a lot of leeway, and he kind of signed off on like their arrest warrant for Carl. So they bring him in, they're bringing, because like obviously it's like the money that went to the offshore account to the hitman came from Fox, but that money came from you first. So we know you hired the hit on Vincent as well as Chandler, but then it was like, Now, did you do the same thing for Fawkes? And he has this look on his face like, no, he didn't. Because the moment he found out Fawkes was dead, it's like, Marco, change of plans. He's like, no, we bailing out of here. Because he knows now he's a liability. You know, you were kind of like, I think he figured there was a chance that whoever killed him might want to come after him because he's a loose end. Because it's all, because another of his clients was Willie. So I'm assuming, like, I would assume Carl had some connection with Willie. And or maybe it's just he's worried that, like, he could be considered a loose end, that he might know too much. I would assume those things are connected. Willie, the mobster out of Vegas, along with all of this. It's kind of the reason why things kind of played out this way. Yeah, so, because he didn't put the hit out on Fawkes. Willie did. So, I don't see them trying to attempt anything on Maddie, and now, especially now that their last attempt failed, and it's going to draw too much attention, so I don't see Willie doing that again, but, you know, we'll see. Still doesn't mean Carl can't potentially find a way and get got, but we'll see. I think he's good for now, but like I said, we'll have to wait and see. Another angle to this whole situation is, well, really quickly, I should focus on what I was kind of thinking about just now. Is going back to the Maddie and Bosch thing. I did like that they, you know, they were listening to Billie Holiday. I think the song they referenced, they were like, "Oh, it's Lady Day." It's like, right, Mom used to sing this all the time. It's like, oh, she was tone deaf. She had a terrible singing voice. Yeah, but you know, and they're both kind of laughing about it. Like, I think all of it kind of just spurred those memories back on, you know. But along with all that, Irving finally gives us some insight into, like, he meets with Brennan. I'm like, of course, we're going to meet you again. Interesting that we see Reese this episode, too. I was like, hey, because I literally brought up both of their names last episode of, like, yeah, we're going to talk to the FBI. It's most likely going to be those two. Well, it turns out Brenner is building a RICO case, and Peanut is his CI. So that's why, like, they immediately, like, grabbed up Alvarez and stuff like that, because they can't jeopardize their case. But for Irving, it's like, no, but you can't do that. Like, there were 5 people murdered in that fire, 2 women, an unborn child, you know, and a 10-year-old. It's like, come on. And it's like, he's like, I get it, but the fact of the matter is the greater good. That's the problem. Like, it becomes what outweighs, like, taking down a whole bunch of gangs and people, like a whole bunch of people, versus taking down Pena, who, like, ordered the hit. But it's like, you know he did it, and it's just like, well, once we're done, you can have Alvarez. Okay, good, yeah, and then he can testify about Mickey. It's like, Mickey who? So it's like, he's getting witness protection too. It's like, no, he's responsible for this. What makes it even more annoying? I mean, not annoying, heartbreaking. It's annoying just because that's how things work. The FBI kind of has more jurisdiction in this part. We'll get to Irving's side of things soon enough, but what sucks is, like, you know, Sonja's dad shows up. He just got there, and he's like, sorry, I couldn't show up for the funeral. It's like, but Bosch makes him feel better. But, like, there were so many people there. Like, obviously, your little girl, like, was special to a lot of people. Like, she was beloved, you know, and at least that's some solace, you know, because obviously he's like, yeah, because getting across the border is a lot harder. But, you know, Bosch is like, that's none of that's my concern, you know. But we arrested the 2 people involved, and do you know them by name? But he immediately associates, like, they're with Las Palmas, aren't they? And Bosch kind of nods. And then immediately goes, there's no one, like, because at first it's like, what about the landlords? Because he knows about the locked door. But it's like, they will be cited and a fine, but there's nothing he can actually do to arrest him, because there's no way to prove who actually locked the door. No justice on that part. What about Mickey? Like, no. Mickey definitely knows what's what about, there's nothing that goes down in that neighborhood without his know-how. But for Bosch, it's like, we're trying to build a case, and he's just like, understandably, he's frustrated, and Bosch ends up giving him his number, just call me anytime. And it's like, he doesn't, like, now we're start tiptoeing to Sonja being kind of forgotten. It's like, right, other bigger deals have to be made, and because of that, like, there is no justice. Like, he gets to skate free, he gets to turn on a whole bunch of people and then gets witness protection, even though he's responsible for so much death. Like, you know, good Bosch even, like, that's why he's even more like, oh, how can you sleep at night? Oh, he sleeps comfortably because he's known for a while that this deal was happening. So, like, that's why I guess he's never been too concerned about it. And that's also why he's probably like, oh, Emmanuel and Alvarez, they won't talk. It's like, he's not too concerned because it's like, right, my deal is already set in stone, or maybe all of that made him escalate things. I mean, it also explains, like, why he knew that Alvarez was, because I guess he gave them Alvarez, and, like, Alvarez will kind of, like, corroborate whatever they need. It's just a sucky situation, because Edgar was following Mickey and sees, like, oh, like, people picking him up and everything. It's like, right, the black SUV or whatever. I'm like, FBI. And the moment Edgar tried to follow them, he stopped immediately. And, you know, Bosch is like, they must have known, they had to have known about the truckers. Like, yeah. So he calls up Irving. He's like, right, could you, what's up with the Alvarez thing? And Irving's like, yeah, playing, you know, phone, like, obviously, like, oh, we're not talking. I'm like, Irv, no, Irv. Because he had talked to Brennan earlier, because he's like, I want to know what it is, the case that they have against Lopez. So he's starting to make deals. I'm like, don't, dude, because he knows Bosch isn't going to like, but he gets what he wants, and now he's got someone else investigating. He wants to know, like, what it is, what case were they building against Lopez that she's kind of happy that gets dropped now. Maybe, like, once again, maybe it's a separate thing, it's connected, but it's still kind of like, I just wish Irv didn't do that, because he knows Bosch would be pissed knowing, like, wait, you know, because the fact is he's known before he even showed up at the crime scene at, like, you know, that garage, at the court garage. Like, he knew then, and he didn't say anything to Edgar nor Bosch. And it's like, you've been sitting on this. Bosch is probably going to end up finding out, because luckily he calls up Reese. I forgot, like, right, she is on desk duty after everything with her partner last season. But, you know, it's soul crushing, but she's willing to meet up with Bosch. It's like, she doesn't know the details because it's all above her pay grade, but she recognizes some faces from the picture from the cafeteria. So she's like, I can't promise anything, but I'll look into it for you. He appreciates that because he wants to know, like, what's up with this whole Alvarez thing. And I'm sure it's going to come back. He's going to bring it up to Irving. Irving's like, this is how things have to be. Not going to sit well with Bosch at all, especially when Sonja's dad came to him like that, wanting justice for his daughter. Once again, Bosch doesn't want anyone to fall through the cracks. If everyone's taken care of or no one's taken, like, you know, that whole thing again. So it's like, I can definitely see this ending sadly. Like, because not all his cases, like, over the course of the show, not all of his cases ended like resounding, like, like, you know, the whole Daisy thing. Heartbreaking how that played out. Hell, even the first case in this series didn't, like, that serial killer in particular, like, that whole thing didn't necessarily play out the way you would want it to. Like, that, everything is so, like, we've seen, like, that's a sad, like, realization of justice. It isn't always what you want or hope it to be, you know. That's the sad reality of the world, you know. And I think the show does a good job of painting that not everything's like, because I mean, a lot of shows do that, and those are the most depressing episodes when there is no, like, full-blown justice, where things are left maybe open-ended in a case, or at the very least, you don't 100% get the results you want. Like I said, like a Daisy Clayton situation, especially what ended up happening to her mom at the end of it. It's just like, oh, it's just depressing, and I'm scared that this is going to be a depressing one. Don't end the series. I mean, hell, we're already on a depressing route with what happened to Donna. It's like, that's already depressing enough. So I'm like, this season's still going to walk away. This, you know, final season's still going to walk away being like, everything ain't great. Especially because you have also Grace's situation. Basically, first and foremost, her girlfriend, like, telling her just to retire, you know, but Billets is like, no, everything's fine. Like, it might be a boys' club, but things aren't as bad as they used to. It's like, they've gotten much better. She's like, have they really? Or is it just that it's, you know, that hate and disrespect's just gotten more polite? People put on a smile when they're basically looking down on you and talking shit about you. Like, you can see that a lot. Because, like, they act all like, oh, like, Leonard and Norris kind of act all, like, cool and everything in front of Billets, but then, like, you know, do some shady shit. I mean, we've seen that time and time. Hell, they even get it. Julia gets, like, a fish with, like, stalking stuffed in it, because it's like, someone knows I talked to you. I guess it's because Billets threw up that thing last episode, so it's like, Dean and not necessarily Dean. I was about to say Dean Norris. I was like, no. Norris and Leonard know it probably could only be her that probably run because she's the one that complained about them in that particular case, and then they got transferred just to kind of keep face. So, but Julia's like, whatever your battle is, that's yours. I got my own battles. Don't draw me into yours. So it's like, okay, so Billups is gonna handle this on her own, and then Leonard and Norris harass Anne. They're like, oh, have you been drinking? And she made sure to call Grace. And I was like, good. And Grace shows up, and it's like, right, you want to mess with someone, like you want to fuck with someone, it's me you're after, leave my girlfriend out of this. It's like, well, we're just going by the book, and we know you're all about that. It's just like, that bastard is so, Leonard's so smug. It's like, okay. And obviously for Grace, she's so frustrated. Vega's like, yeah, this is BS that they all have to deal with, but not everyone has the power to actually do something about it. And and it's like, right, despite everything, Grace is the lieutenant. Like, these are just some punks. You had the power to actually do something, like, because for everyone else, it could jeopardize their career. It can make things complicated. Like, I mean, it is still a boys' club, because even like the Pounds and her captain, like, I feel like they're quote unquote taking it seriously, but they're not taking it as seriously as they should, so that's where it's kind of like, so we'll see where things gonna go, because like, this is just getting to the point that, like, harassing her girlfriend like that just to prove a point. It's like, you smug bad. I hope Grace is able to put you in your place. In what way, I don't know, but so there's that. Another angle to this episode was Edgar, coming to talk to Bosch. For him, it's like, I've been letting a lot of people down ever since the night of that fire until now. Like, I've been letting you down, my kids, my ex, my job, you most of all, and it's like, you were there to protect Maddie, but he was like, yeah, but I'm the reason why she was in the crossfire in the first place. He was like, true. And it's like, are we squared? And he's like, Bosch is like, we'll get there. But then he opens up, he's like, Avril, I did show up there that night to kill him. And he's like, I know. Because Remy Toussaint gave him an excuse, but he was already sitting out there already with the intent to kill. Like, I mean, to be fair, like, he popped him before he even had the time to lower the gun. It's just that smile on his face. It's like, I think he went there with the intent to do it, but then he was still debating, and seeing that smile on Avril's face popped him. And it's like, he's like, I just wanted justice. And he's like, did you? And he's like, for Jerry, he's like, I don't know. I legitimately don't know if I actually got justice or not. Like, and that's the complicated thing. Like, this is weighing on him, but it's like, what arresting him and actually being able to get proper justice would have, but there was no way to actually do it. So he took it in his own hands. It was revenge, but so it's more revenge than justice. But can revenge be counted? That's a whole thing. Like, only he can really decide, Because Bosch had brought it up last episode. I want you to at least have thought about knowing what you did was wrong before you did it. Because not thinking about that ahead of time, knowing like, okay, what I'm about to do is wrong, like that's a bad sign if you don't even think about that. But if you thought about it, at least made Bosch think you thought about it. You still have a conscience, you still have a soul about it. You haven't fully crossed that line in an irredeemable space. So some interesting things, like I said. I'm really interested to see where all this takes us. Like I said, there's only 2 episodes left, so next episode's the penultimate episode, so it's going to be interesting to see what goes down, what gets set up, where all this ends up taking us. But really, that's all I want to talk about. Till the next time we meet, be happy, be safe, live life to the fullest, and enjoy it. Good day, and goodbye.